All right, friends, we're back again with a Blaha video. Probably people getting sick of this guy. Anyways, we're going to react to this very interesting video he just posted. Wow. So we're going to react to the gym, lifting, recruiting, fitness gear sleeve himself, JasonBlaha. So JasonBlaha says, classic bodybuilders build phenomenal physiques with far less equipment than we have. I believe he's talking about steroid people. They're not bodybuilders. They're not building their body. They're building drugs. They're building drugs. They're taking drugs and building something. They're making something fake with drugs.
Classic era bodybuilders built amazing physiques with way less equipment than we have today. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, you want to know how they built their physiques? With drugs. They took drugs and they built a fake, phony physique. That's what they did. Why didn't these exercises work previously? Why didn't they work? These so-called golden bodybuilders, yeah? So why didn't it work when they did it without drugs? They didn't take the magic drugs to build a magic fake physique. So why didn't it work? Why didn't it work? Why did it work after they took the drugs? Why did it stop working when they were lifting? I know. They reached their genetic limit, right? So they injected genetics. Plant genetics, these crappy plant, shitty, toxic genetics. They injected it in them, and then they got this physique all of a sudden. Whoa, magically. Magic, like the magic beans or the magic whatever potion. See what I mean? Wow, this is just more bullshit by Blaha.
JasonBlaha here. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today.
Yeah, okay.
But a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
If you're not following or subscribed, please do so.
Okay.
I would appreciate that also. And if you would be so kind as to drop me a comment down below,
yeah,
I would be grateful. Thank you so much. Let's get over to the topic. You know, you go back and you look at these classic era guys. Look at the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. These guys still had amazing physiques, and on top of that, they didn't even have all the stuff. By the stuff, I mean the various magical supplements we have today.
Here we go. You see, the magical supplements, the magic supplements that we had today to create the magic fake physique. Get it? You understand me?
We need to be clear on that, especially the late 50s, the 60s.
Yeah, we need to be clear on that. Late 50s, 60s, yeah.
They had, some of them had nothing. Some of them had access to, when they did have stuff, it was way, 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 way less different things than what guys have out there today.
Oh,
okay, so
yeah,
people can't say, well, you know, so they...
Yeah, they had way, way, way less, yeah.
Less different things than what guys have out there today.
Sure,
okay, so people can't say, well, you know, so they used... No, it wasn't even that. Like, again... They did not have access to what we have access to today. They didn't have the supplements. They didn't have the same magical supplements, and you guys know what that means. That's code. They didn't have the same equipment. They didn't have all the machines. They didn't have all the cables.
They didn't have all the machines and all the weights. They didn't have all the magic supplements, but they had machines. They had cable machines, and they had weights. And guess what? They had supplements. They didn't have all of them, Blaha says, right? But they had them, right? And so they fucking used them. That's what they fucking did. And then they fooled people in their stupid ass magazines that they did these exercises and that's what built their body and all this kind of shit, garbage. Man, it's all garbage. And they took these protein powders by Weider and whatever. It was all garbage. Buy my program. Here, it's in the classified ad. These stupid magazines, they used to have classified ads. They used to post them there all the time. They still had them, like in Muscle Mag and all that. Buy my program, this, that. It was all crap. It was all junk. Listen, I had a classified ad in Muscle Mag. I remember a kid coming up to me in World's Gym in Mexico at the time. This was the beginning of the millennium when I was there. And a kid came up to me and he wanted to talk to me. I thought he recognized me from somewhere. I didn't know. But I just pretended like I didn't speak English. I didn't want to talk to him. It's too bad. I should have said something because I was interested. Now I'm interested to know what the hell he wanted. But anyways, at that time, I saw the magazine, a magazine there, and I saw my classified ad in there. Get it? Yeah. I'll explain this. I used to have a GeoCities web page, a GeoCities web page. I had some photos there They didn't have video. I would try to put video, but never worked at that time. And so you could put pictures and you can put some description, some information. And so I had an email address, yada, 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 whatever. And I put a classified ad in the Muscle magazines at that time. And so I actually was selling a program. You understand me? But here's the thing. The program was basically, they had to email me. When they emailed me, I sent them the link to the GeoCities webpage. Yeah, that's what I did at the time. I didn't think anything of it at the time. See what I mean? They paid me. They paid me for that information. That was about the only time I put out information. I remember because some guy asked me before about my GeoCities webpage. I can't remember. It was a while ago. It was on my old channel when I started this YouTube channel, Genetic Beast, my previous Genetic Beast, whatever, the old channel. They were talking to me about that GeoCities page. But what did I do? And I said, I talked about how I built myself. And that was the only time in that page that I ever talk about eccentric overload. That was the only time. Because somebody asked me now, why didn't I talk about the overload part in my old channel? Why am I bringing it up now in this channel? Well, because in November, I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing just eccentric overloads. And so I thought I don't know, something came over me. And I thought at this time, I said, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to tell people the secret, the complete secret. Like, I got to tell them, this is it. This is it, eccentric overload. And that's what will build your body, eccentric overloads. And so when I put it out, and then I think it was Nacho that contacted me, Lion contacted me, and there was another guy. And so I thought, okay, so I think I examined their videos, okay, because they asked me to look through their videos. And I knew they were doing it wrong. They were doing these one-legged things, whatever, you know, because I had talked about it in a previous video, but it's showing what this guy was doing in a university. But what they were doing was totally, it just doesn't, it's not like that. And so when I saw what he was doing, I explained to them, there's something called submaximal, supramaximal, and accentuated eccentric exercise. And I figured once I tell them that, they will absolutely figure out, oh, so this is what that does, and this is what that does, and this is how we do this. And so I talked about it, kind of explained it in my videos, and that's it. That set them straight. You know what I mean? But back then on my GeoCities webpage, I had not known about those terminologies called submaximal, supramaximal, and accentuated. You understand me? I only knew that it was an eccentric overload, that it was overloaded in the eccentric. That's all, the exercise. And that you should just do eccentric exercises and overload them with heavy weight. You understand me? In that time, they didn't have these terminologies. I had learned them a couple of years ago. I looked them up online, and I was like, okay, so these are the terminologies, right? But like I said, this guy asked me, how come I didn't reveal it? Why now? Why didn't I do it on my old channel? Because my friend of mine told me not to tell anybody how to build muscle. That's all. So I did tell people, I said eccentric, but I guess they weren't listening. I did say that I started doing an overworking of an untrained muscle. That's how I would get this damage to come back. I would still do full range of motion. That's totally different. You understand me? But the eccentric is still causing the damage, not the concentric. But when it comes to the absolute secret to building muscle, you really only have to do eccentric overload. See what I mean? So we have three categories: submaximal, supramaximal, and accentuated. That's all. There's only three categories for that. Basically, once you understand which each one does, you have an idea. It's not hard to do these exercises. It's not complicated. You understand me? It's not rocket science, dude. Get it? And so you're looking for the bet after, when you get more advanced, you're looking for exercises that get you the most damage. And eventually you even move up from there. You get more advanced and you're like, okay, I could go really heavy and do higher repetition work and just leave the gym. You literally can do a 100 rep set, really super heavy on each exercise, and literally leave the gym and not come back. See what I mean? And you'll get this damage. But that is for a much more advanced lifter. Anyways, let's get on with this video, because I'm going to stay here forever talking about this.
They didn't have all those things, that we have, especially all the machines, yet they got amazing.
They did. They had enough. They don't need machines. You need a good majority of free weights and some cable and weights of cables. They had them. They had them.
Absolutely amazing results. okay? Right? They got amazing results. Go back and look at how they train, and it's because they figured out how to make everything work, right?
No, they didn't.
They figured out how to...
No, they didn't. They didn't get any results. That's why they took drugs. Blaha's lying.
Make everything work with the equipment that they had available. They found the angle. So you go back and look, and it's like they figured out, since, well, we don't have these different curl machines, we don't have cables, they figured out how to find the angles to make a dumbbell or a barbell work. And they still built, say, amazing biceps, right? You look at that. They all figured out, oh, with the straight bar, like they all knew back then, watch how a lot of those guys curl. They always had...
What is he talking about? They would have built those phony triceps anyways. They got pumped, okay? They're lifting to get pumped. That's what they're doing. That's why they look the way they do, cosmetic, okay? And none of you people lifting naturally look like any of these fucking steroid people. So Blaha needs to shut the fuck up.
The wrist trailing a little bit behind when they did a curl. Why? Because they figured out really quick, man, we just feel more bicep and less forearm that way. Which again, guys, today, oh, I don't like the straight bar. I feel my forearm too much, and they don't realize that all those guys had no trouble with it.
They're not building anything. That's a lie. They're not building jack shit.
They just learned how to hold the bar correctly to make it go away. They had dumbbells where they figured out, well, we could do different stuff to supinate and pronate the wrist. They figured out, hey, well, on the dumbbell, we can get on an incline bench and get a deeper stretch. We get a deeper stretch on everything. Like they didn't have some of the other machines, so they figured out how to do pullovers. So like you go back and look at those errors, look at some of the exercises that really built those classic upper bodies. Okay? What do you see? You're going to see.
Oh, look at those people, what they built, the classic upper bodies, whatever, bodybuilders or whatever, bro. Blaha's just insane, man. It's all crap.
A lot of pullovers. Those guys loved pullovers.
They weren't damaging their muscles. They were still lifting. They were still lifting, doing lazy workouts. They did lazy workouts. Maybe they lifted heavy in a short range of motion, but that doesn't build muscles short ranges of motion concentrically.
They loved weighted pull-ups, weighted chin-ups, weighted dips. Okay? So if you go back and you look, all those guys, you always see them doing dips. And how often when they're doing dips, or these guys, they're not even doing the parallel, you'll see the guys doing super, super deep dips. That's why I've started doing them more and more. All right? They didn't have chest machines, they didn't have dip machines. They oftentimes just had the parallel or V-bar dips. But they got really good at them. Okay? Got really good at them. They built big chest, big triceps doing that. Right, but the pullovers, absolutely. So look, and I want people to really think about something you really see from a lot of the classic era, the guys in the 60s and stuff, right? How many of them just have those massive horseshoe triceps, right? You'll see the guys who have the absolute.
Blaha is absolutely deranged, man. He's crazy. They took drugs, okay? They didn't build anything there. If they did, where did it all go after where they went off their drugs? Look at Kevin Lavroni. Where's all his muscles? Where are they? See, here's the thing. If you build real muscle myofibulars, they don't go away. They don't go, once they're built, they're there. They're always there. They can be there for years and you don't have to lift. For years, providing you eat. If you eat, then they'll be there. If you starve them, of course, they can be dismantled slowly if you starve, like anything in your body. But once you build them, they're there. So why do all their muscles disappear? Because they're fake. They're not real, bro. Get it? Fake doesn't last in this world. If it's fake, it's fake. It's not worth anything. Fake is not worth anything. It doesn't have any tangible value. See what I mean? There's no value there because it's fake. You're going to have to keep taking those drugs. And those drugs are dangerous for what? So that you could look like a cosmetic person? Like cosmetics? You want to take cosmetics? What the fuck, bro?
Massive long head of the triceps. And you're wondering, how did they do that? Those pullovers.
And you're wondering, how did they do that? They got these massive shoe horse, whatever. Steroids, that's how. Not pullovers, steroids.
Pullover works that head primarily. It is one of the best, we're finding now with some data, it's one of the absolute best long head of the tricep exercises. We're finding now with some data, it's one of the absolute best long head of the tricep exercises. Okay? And they did.
No, it's not. The best exercise is that exercise which will give you muscle damage. And that's eccentric exercise. That's the best exercise that will get you what? Muscle damage, which will activate MPS, muscle protein synthesis, and grow your muscles. Yeah. You have to be stupid not to understand that. You have to be gone somewhere.
All those dips, plus they all did lots of pressing. They did lots of really, really deep dips. They did lots of pullovers.
No, they didn't. They did a lot of injecting of steroids in their ass and orals and injections in their butt cheeks.
That's the reason so many of them had those amazing triceps, because they did. You go back and look, it's like they weren't
because they
them
took
like these guys.
lots and lots of drugs.
They all had the triceps, okay? They all had lats, but they also lived on pull-ups. So if you really go, why do some of those guys have such that really great small waist, with that V-taper that so many of them had? It's all the pull-ups and all the pullovers, because they built the long head of that tricep. And all.
Oh, yeah. It's all the pull-ups and all the pullovers. That's why they got those great traps. And then guess what? They didn't get anything. So what did they do? They took drugs. Oh, and then they did.
It helps build the intercostals and serratus. It also helps, the pullovers help stretch all that area so you can do vacuums better.
That's funny. How come Blaha is not getting any of that? How come Blaha's not getting any of these things? Hey? How come it's not working for him?
A lot of them, they lived on vacuum, so a lot of them had small waists from building all the transverse abdominals and everything there. But man, the pullovers help. See that, and then all those super deep dips, okay? I think those are massive, massive keys to why they had what they had, okay? And a lot of them had great calves, great legs. When you go look, a lot of them, they didn't have machines for calves that way. So it's even like you see me doing a lot of home gym guys. You get on a barbell, get a barbell and a plate, and you just do calf raises with a barbell. And they built calves. And the same thing, they still had great legs. They didn't have the massive disproportionate legs we do see in current bodybuilding. And they also, you didn't see the big rectus femoris, right? So, which is actually considered, if you look at them, they all had a little bit different shape to the leg. The quad, they had more of the quad sweep, and they didn't have that big rectus femoris at the top that made the leg look a little less aesthetic. So why? Well, they didn't have leg extensions always. They had squat pattern movements. Sometimes they had some hack squat machines or whatever, but a lot of them just did back squats. They did front squats. They built their quads with squats. It gives a slightly different shape to the leg, because now you're working the other three heads of the quad more. You're working the lower part more, because most of them did squats, and they did deep squats. And you always look, man, a lot of them are just doing full squats, not even current powerlifting squats. Well, it builds the quads, and it builds a proportionate amount of lower quad versus that upper area. Okay, it worked. It worked extremely well. And again, no, they didn't.
No, they didn't work, because if they worked, they wouldn't have taken steroids. Get it, man? Let me explain this. If their exercises actually worked, then they wouldn't have to take steroids. So none of the stuff that they did worked. Do you understand me? Because they didn't know what built muscle. They didn't understand that it was just this damage, DOMs, and these exercises, lifting eccentrically. They didn't really understand the concept of that.
Have all the machines and stuff, and they made, but they...
See, you have to discover it by accident like I did. I discovered it one day by accident. Not to say that people didn't know about doing, I remember these guys in these old gyms, and they were like, oh, you have to do exercises that you're unaccustomed to. You have to do this and that, which you haven't done before to get gains. But what they didn't understand was, they were right. You have to do unaccustomed exercises. But what they didn't understand was unaccustomed exercise is known to cause what? Widespread muscle damage. So that is the part that they didn't understand. See what I mean? And I remember even people saying, oh, you need to use the short range of motion, eccentric. They would do these exercises, but they weren't doing enough of them. They weren't doing it enough or something. You understand me? The premise, the idea was good, but they didn't know what built muscle. Like I said, I did it by accident one day. It was an accident. I did my whole upper body one day, and I remember it hurt the next day, and it hurt for 4 days or something. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go down to the buffet and just eat like crazy and my muscles should grow, right? Okay. So I figured, I did read some stuff and I figured, okay, muscles are kind of damaged now. This must be the damage and this must be an apoptosis or something. So the most important time to eat is right after your damaging session because you're anabolic now. It's very important to go down to a buffet and eat for hours after your workout. That is when you're going to maximize the most growth. But if you don't do that, you're not going to maximize the growth. So what was the point of damaging your muscles if you don't go and eat like crazy amounts of food after the damaging workout? Look, it's like this. You go to the gym, right? You guys are all lifting full range of motion, whatever, okay? And you're thinking to yourself, I'm getting damage. Maybe you are getting some damage, you're not, I don't know. You're getting some minor damage. Maybe it's repairing, patching, I don't know. Maybe there's some remodeling. Who the fuck knows? The point is this. Your exercise, the damage that you're doing is minor. So you don't need to eat that much because there's just no point. But if you're causing astronomically massive amounts of damage where you're sore for days, DOMs, you got fucking real micro tears in there, you need to go and eat after that exercise a lot. I suggest you find a buffet and go and eat for the next 5 hours. You get it, man? Because that is your open window for growth. And if you don't do that, it's a waste, bro. Get it? Going home and eating like, I don't know, a quarter chicken, something, potatoes, whatever, that's just not enough. You need raw fish, sushi, chicken, beef. Man, you need to eat fucking a lot. And you need to eat a lot of complex carbohydrates. Stay away from rice. So eat potatoes, okay? Eat a lot of potatoes. And combine it with that. And that's going to help. Now, after you finish your meal, can you eat some fruit? Yeah, I suggest you eat some fruit, but not a lot. You can eat some fruit because they have some trace minerals in there too. Like they have vitamin C and stuff. So they're not so bad, okay? So it is good to incorporate some fruit. And you should eat some soup at the buffet if they have a good type of soup. I don't know, a wonton soup or something. Something that is a good type of soup, not these shitty, weird slave food soups. You can eat those. Those help, man. The bone broth soups, they really help a lot. All right.
Still were extremely well developed. So they had very aesthetic lower bodies compared to a lot of the guys today. But then the upper body, those proportions, they still developed everything. And they always had the big triceps. Again, go back and look at guys like anyone from Steve Reeves to Bill Pearl, definitely the triceps. But you go look, and all these guys, they did all the tons of pullovers, they did tons of dips, right? It helped with that tremendously. And they all had the big V taper, and it's because they lived on pull-ups. A lot of them did rows. They all did squat, bench, and deadlift and all that. Same thing, when they benched, they all benched flat back. What did that do? Well, it gave them a really well-developed chest. None of the guys back then, you never heard any of the guys from that era say the bench press isn't a great chest exercise. But they weren't bouncing it, and a lot of them did flat back benching with a fairly wide grip. They all had pecs.
No, none of them had pecs. That's why they took steroids, get it? None of them had pecs. That's why they took steroids, to create fake pecs.
These guys figured out how to make it all work. And you look, and there's great physique after great physique.
They did figure out how to make it all work. It's called steroids.
After great physique with literally nothing, with access to nothing but barbells, dumbbells, and then weighted body weight exercises.
Yes, absolute access to nothing but what? Lots and lots and lots of drugs. And then they had these weights and everything that they used to pump up their body. Get it, bro? They use weights to pump their muscles. Hell, they could have just did like body weight exercises and they would have gotten big and pumped.
Okay, you go look, it's like, man, it's squats, deadlifts, calf raises, bench press, overhead press,
so why didn't
weighted
it work?
Pull-ups, right?
So why didn't it work for them before they took the drugs? Why didn't it work then? Why did they need to take drugs? If all these exercises work, Blaha, why do these fucking people need to take drugs? These so-called bodybuilders you call bodybuilders. They're not bodybuilders because they're not building their body. What they're building is drugs. That's what they're building. They're building a nice drug resume. I don't know what you're talking about, dude, but whatever. They're not building anything because there's nothing built there. That's why it went away when they went off the drugs. And look at you. You never built your physique. Your physique is second rate. I don't know what you're taking or what you're doing, but you never built a physique. That's why you look the way you do. Yeah. And you're just going to get worse. You're actually getting worse, whatever it is you're doing here. Maybe that TRT is preserving you. I'm not sure.
Weighted dips, and they did the tons of pullovers, barbell curls, incline curls on dumbbells.
Sure.
Right? Of course, a lot of them, they also did extensions and things, various types of skull crushers.
They did all those,
They all had great physiques and great balance, great aesthetics. Plenty of guys did without access to any.
I have a friend, he took steroids. The only thing he ever did was the rack. You know the squat rack where you have the barbell on it? He did everything on that squat rack. He did his bench presses, he did his squats, he did his deadlift, he did everything on there. Everything, his arms, his shoulders, presses, OHP. He didn't do anything else. And he took drugs. And he said, I didn't need to do anything because I took drugs to fake it. I made a fake physique. There you go.
Yeah, the stuff that we had today. This should make people really rethink what they're doing.
What an idiot Blaha is. It makes people think they should rethink what they're doing. Yeah. None of it worked, and all of a sudden it worked when they took the drugs. So why didn't it work? Because it never worked. See you in the next one. Ciao, man.